Let's lead and live in a whole new way.
Hey, friend, welcome to the Less Stress, More Joy podcast with Amy Leneker. It's me, Amy, and I am so glad that you're here. If you are here for the first time, thank you. I'm so glad you found your way here. And if you are a returning listener, thank you for coming back. On this episode, we tackle a exhausting, soul-sucking lie that we've been sold, that stress is the price of success. But it's not. It's the thief that steals it. And today we're going to dive into what are the unexpected drivers of stress at work? What are the unexpected drivers of joy? And how do we do more of one and less of the other? So settle in, take a deep breath, and let's get started. The data we're going to talk about today comes from my latest national research study on stress and joy at work. And if you don't already have it, I will drop a link to it in the show notes. You can also find it online at my website at amyleneker.com. And what I want to do is let's look at what are the leading drivers of stress? What are the leading drivers of joy so that we can do less of one and more of the other? And one thing I want to mention is that in the national research study, I found that it isn't just stress that ripples beyond work. I think we all intuitively know that when you've got a really hard day at work, when you've had a really stressful day at work, it's hard to not have that follow you home. And if you're listening and that resonates with you, 62% of working Americans said that resonates with them too. That stress at work carries over into their life outside of work. Here's what's interesting. 71% of working Americans said that when they experience joy at work, it carries over to their life outside of work. 71%, so almost 3/4 of people say that when I'm feeling joy at work during the day, it carries over, it's impacting their families and their communities. And that's why we have got to get this right. We have to acknowledge that the way we've been working simply isn't working. And if we continue to have crushing levels of stress and minimal amounts of joy, it isn't just impacting our workplace, it is impacting our families, it's impacting our communities. If you follow me on LinkedIn, then you may have already read this story I'm about to share. And if we're not connected on LinkedIn, please reach out. I would love to connect with you there. I was meeting with the CEO whose team had arranged an exploratory meeting for us to see if we would be a good fit working together. And at one point in the meeting, they say, Amy, I'm just not that into joy. And I started laughing and I said, have you seen the book that I wrote? Do you know what I do for a living? And what I was so grateful that I had done this national research study is I was able to say, so you may not be into joy, as you say, and yet here's what I can tell you. I can tell you that 79% of working Americans say that feeling joy at work helps them do their best work, that they need joy in order to do their best work. And that number, it jumps to 89% for executives. So even though, this is what I said to the CEO, so even though you may not be that into joy, data would suggest that 89% of your executive team is, and 79% of your organization is. And so you get to decide, what do you want to do with that information? We have to flip this conversation that we've been having. I know so many leaders and teams who are stressed and burnout from talking about stress and burnout. It has been 6 years since the global pandemic, and yet when you look at stress data, it is still high. We have not gone back to pre-pandemic levels. We have to understand what are the biggest drivers of stress and what are the biggest drivers of joy so that we're able to tackle it on both sides. When I looked at what were the biggest drivers of stress, what were the things that were creating the most stress in a workplace, the first one was an overwhelming workload. And I can't imagine that this is a surprise to anyone listening, that having an overwhelming workload is really difficult. It raises your stress, it has a negative impact on your joy. And we know decades of research from Gallup shows that if you report that you don't have enough time to do your work, then you're 70% more likely to burn out. 70% is a lot. So we've got to figure that out. What is happening with these overwhelming workloads? I do a lot of work with government that is consistently being asked to do more with less. And over time, that is a recipe for disaster. So let's look at the second joy buster. So the first joy, maybe we should think about them that way. Let's talk about joy busters and joy builders. So the first joy buster was overwhelming workload. The second was feeling underappreciated. That when you go to work every day and you don't feel appreciated for the work that you do, that was the second joy buster. Third is sudden changes without explanation. And if you've been a long time listener, I say long time, though I think this is like episode 19. but long time, if you've been here from the beginning, let's just say it that way, then you know about sudden stress. Sudden stress is the stress that happens without warning. It happens when you're not expecting it. It happens when you've got to make a shift or make a decision or take an action that you weren't planning for. That was the third joy buster. The fourth is technology problems that disrupt the day. If you are listening to this and you are in IT or you're in IS or you are somehow connected to keeping the technology running behind the scenes, I hope that you know just how important the work is that you do. And I know that it must feel like you only hear about things when it's not working. And that's certainly what I'm doing right here is I'm talking about it in terms of when technology disrupts the day, it is a joy buster. And then the last one, the fifth one, and there are more in the report, but we're just going to do the top 5 in each category for our time together today. The fifth one is feeling isolated or disconnected. We have known that, and Brene Brown writes about this, that we are neurobiologically hardwired for connection. And so the threat of disconnection is real. It's traumatic. And that's how Brene Brown describes it, that the threat of disconnection is traumatic. And we see that play out here in the State of Stress and Joy report as well. We've looked at the top 5 things that can bust it. So let's look at the top 5 that can build it. These are the ones that are going to allow joy to be there at work. We can't force it, we can't manufacture it, but we can create the conditions for it. And the first one is experiencing a sense of purpose. When there is a purpose in what you do, followed by making a meaningful impact, this idea that what I'm doing isn't for nothing. There's a reason. There is a meaning in what I'm doing every day. The third one was making progress. When there's momentum, you're making progress toward meaningful goals, toward things that matter. Fourth was feeling valued by your manager. We have decades of research to back up just how important the relationship is with your direct manager. And this again backs it up right here in front of us that feeling valued by our manager is a joy builder. And the last one, the fifth one, was completing a challenging project or task. That when you're able to get to the end of something and you're able to say, this was something that was important and I was able to come through it. The link to this report is in the show notes. I hope you grab it because on page 24, you're going to see an infographic of the top 5 joy builders, the top 5 joy busters. And I'm going to challenge you as you head into this work week, or if it's a Friday, maybe you're wrapping up your work week, but to go back to work with this information. Go back to work with this idea of I'm going to be on the lookout for things that are building my joy. I'm going to be on the lookout for things that are busting my joy, and being really thoughtful and strategic and not just letting these things happen by accident. So friends, this was a shorter episode today. I have gotten some feedback that you're loving the longer ones, and some of you are loving the shorter episodes because you can listen to them at little breaks during the day. So I hope that this one was value added to you. If you loved this episode, and I hope that you did, please share it, follow this podcast. It helps people find their way to less stress and more joy. If anything today resonated with you, or if you have a question, reach out. Amy@amyleneker.com. I read every single message, and I would love to hear from you. You can grab a copy of Cheers to Monday everywhere books are sold or at your local library. Take care, have a great week, and I'll see you next time.
Feeling stressed, yeah, me too. But friend, your best life's waiting.